Well, it's Tuesday.
We're back.
We're back. And we've been going through this treatise on scales and gauges. And we looked at the gauges that had been devised by the Society of Model Railroad Engineers in the 1890s in Great Britain in order to correspond with existing scales, 148, 124, 112, etc. And in order to keep their math simple, they had cheated standard gauge to 5 feet. Right. So that's about where we left off there. And of course, there were two schools of thought at the time. Who cares that it's 5 feet? Moreover, the other group of people going, you can't do that. That ain't right at all. Standard gauge is 4 feet 8.5 inches, and I ain't modeling nothing that's 5 feet. I'm just not going to do it. So anyway, the people who truly didn't care were people like Lionel and Marx.
There you go.
Because they're making toy trains, right?
Yeah.
They didn't care what scale it was because they didn't follow a scale. They were making Zymac cast locomotives that more or less looked like some prototype engine.
Right.
And they went around on 3-rail track. And the one thing that you could say about it was that it was an O gauge. It was 1.25 inches between those outside rails, and it did have a center rail, generally speaking, sometimes not. But they didn't really follow any scale. And so just to kind of let everybody know that they weren't interested in following any particular scale, they called it O gauge. So their track is O gauge. It's 1.25 inches. Their scale is, I don't know, whatever fits in the box. It's a toy. It's not meant to be a scale model, really.
It's a thing.
It's a thing, and it goes down 3-rail track with a center rail, and we will do a whole show on why they put a center rail there.
Please.
That's another subject. Anyway, in so doing, boy, did they create some confusion for people, because I can't tell you how many times somebody will say, well, I have an HO gauge railroad. What? Because gauge, once they started referring to their models as O gauge, somehow that stuck and people started, they were just saying, no, if you buy our model, it runs on 1.25 inch track. It runs on O gauge track.
There you go.
Scale? I don't know. Doesn't matter. Okay, so if you're doing accurate modeling like HO scale, we know what the gauge of the track is because it's an HO scale railroad.
Right.
So anyway, that's where this weird schism developed between some people saying scale and some people saying gauge. Lionel and Marx and some of these companies said O gauge because it's a toy that runs on O gauge track.
I just can't wait to find out what that third rail's all about.
Oh boy, it's
I've had that question since I was a little girl because I saw trains for real and they had 2 tracks. Where did the third one come from?
Why is there a third? Did you know there were some prototype railroads that had that? Not very many, but there were some.
Not the ones I ever saw, but I had a question.
I've seen pictures of it, but that's all.
I still have that question.
Yeah. Anyway, there was very logical reasons why they did that. And so we're going to do a whole show on why they did that.
Right.
At any rate, the more purist modeler wanted to not have a third rail, and they did want to follow a scale, and so they were doing O scale.
There you go.
And this is an O scale model. This is that locomotive that we saw in Elko.
Right. Isn't that neat?
Jeep 9 in Western Pacific.
Right.
When this model came out, I had to have one.
Oh, I don't blame you. It looks like a tiger.
Never run it or anything because I don't have. We used to have an O scale railroad, and this would run on that track. It was 5-foot gauge because we just had to accept the fact that the gauge was 5 feet. This has standard O scale, O gauge track, therefore it's 1.25 inches. So that makes the gauge of this locomotive off by about the width of the rail. And you just kind of have to accept that as, oh, well, that's the cheat left over from those original scales.
Okay.
Okay?
Oh,
well. Here's another model I just have to show you.
Now that.
CA1 by a Union Pacific CA1. Again, a leftover from our scale railroad that had 2 rails, Operation Scale Railroad.
I don't care. It's a caboose.
So these are both 1/48 scale, 1 1/4 inch gauge, therefore 5-foot gauge.
It's beautiful.
And in America, at least, those of us that wanted to do more or less accurate railroading just accepted the fact that the gauge is off by, like I said, about the thickness of the rail. If you'd knocked that rail over by just the width of the rail, that's where it should be.
Wow.
Instead of here.
Okay.
Okay. So scale, American version of scale. Okay. Following the cheat that was devised by the Europeans, but oddly enough, never followed by the Europeans that designed it, only followed by the Americans who said, close enough. It'll do. Make sense?
No.
No, of course it doesn't make sense. It's model railroading. It's not supposed to make sense.
It's supposed to be
except
fun.
for the manufacturers makes dollars and cents. Anyway, if you haven't been over to the channel, or heaven forbid you're not a subscriber, I hope you don't just come over here and watch these and go, well, that was silly and fun. But if you haven't actually clicked on the subscribe button, please do that, because it tells the computers and the bots and all of the algorithms and that nonsense
How about y'all want a caboose for Christmas?
that you want a caboose for Christmas. And Santa Claus monitors the bots, and one of those bots belongs to him. So if you click on the subscribe, you'll get a train for, maybe you'll get a train for Christmas.
I'll get a caboose.
I don't know what you'll get for Christmas.
Already
Maybe
have
a
one.
lump of coal, but that you can burn in your locomotive. At any rate, we digress. If you haven't been over to the channel, and if you're not a subscriber, click the upcoming subscribe button. If you are a subscriber, you can click it anyway. It'll just take you to the channel.
That's right.
If you're ready for the blue button, here it comes. Zoink! Right there, the blue button. Well, we're not sure how you found this video on the internet. We hope you didn't find it boring. Educational, at least. And we will see you here on Sunday.
Yes.
With some of that foolishness.
Right.
We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye.